Krystal was tired of me going out on seller appointments and getting rejected and being like, you know what? They didn't want to accept my cash offer. So what made you be like, you know what? You need to learn creative financing because we're missing out on too many deals.
We all know that a lot of times these sellers are not going to be interested in pennies on the dollar. Even if their property is falling down, they still is like, listen, I'm not going to give my property away. So I told Dedric, I said, listen, we got to pivot. We're losing out on too many properties. So I said, listen, going forward, you have to master seller finance.
So here's the challenge right now and also the opportunity. So there is a shortage of 3.2 million units nationwide, depending on who you ask. Some people say 3.2, some people say up to 7 million units. There's a shortage of housing in America and there's a lack of affordability. Shortage and there's a lack of affordability. Houses have never been less affordable than they are now. And couple that with after COVID, the prices shot up. So we're in an extreme seller's market right now, extreme seller's market. So sellers have the upper hand. So if you look at the prices from March 2020 when COVID hit to July of last year, average prices is over 400,000. Like the average single family home in America is over 408,000. Actually, I just looked it up today. 422,000 is the national median single family home price. It is crazy right now. The mortgage payment on a house like that is over $2,000 a month. So the average American cannot afford the single family home these days. Now let's talk about supply. So right now there's 4.1 months of inventory supply. What that means is that listed on the market, there's 4.1 months, right? Depending on how many months, that's going to determine if it's a seller's market or a buyer's market. So anything less than 4 or 5 months of inventory supply as a seller's market means there's low supply, there's high demand, prices tend to go up. And that's what we've been in for the past 3 or 4 years. What's happening now is that you're seeing more inventory come onto the market. So we're moving towards more of a balanced market. Now, listen, real estate is not national. It's actually local, right? So if you're in Dallas, your market is going to be different than someone in St. Louis. Jacksonville market is going to be different than someone in Washington, D.C. So it's really local. And even within cities, you have communities and neighborhoods where they have a local real estate market. But you also want to know the inventory in your area. So again, we've been in an extreme seller's market. It's been very difficult to find deals. We're now shifting, depending on where you're located, to more of a buyer's market where houses are taking longer to sell. Prices are stabilizing, and some areas are actually going down where buyers have more of an upper hand, right? This is good for you guys as an investor because now you're going to have more options and be able to get better deals. But my question for you guys is what happens typically when you present a seller with a cash offer? A cash offer is usually 50% of what the asking price or the fair market value is or below. Most times when you present a seller with a cash offer that's 50 cents on the dollar offer, they're going to say no. Why would they accept your offer if they're not in distress, right? If they're not super motivated for some reason, right? Why they're not going to accept your offer. What happens most times they say no, but where do you go? As a wholesaler, I don't care if you're a fix and flip investor, what's your next move? Most people just chalk that lead up, say, you know what? Sucks, but let me go on to the next property, right? And that's what we did early in our career because that's the only strategy we knew, which was wholesaling. But once we learned creative financing, we now added another tool to our tool belt where we can offer that seller another option other than just a low ball cash offer, right? And when you couple the seller's market we've been in with all the stuff that's going on, you have to understand how to offer them creative financing terms where you can offer them a lot more. So how would you guys like to be able to offer sellers more than their asking price? How would you even do that, right? We're investors. We got to get properties dirt cheap to make money. That's what I thought when I first got into business. So we're going to show you guys how we make 2 offers on every house. Now, the cash offer, guys, is very simple. I like to say any caveman can make a cash offer. All you got to do is know how to put a couple numbers into a spreadsheet and you got a cash offer, right? What's the formula? It's after repair value times 75% minus the repairs, minus how much you want to make on a wholesale fee if you're wholesaling it. And you got your maximum allowable offer in this bottom line of 213,000 for this particular house. Very simple, very straightforward. That's the cash offer. But how do you determine your seller finance offer, right? But we're going to get to that in a second. So you want to talk about why we present, because you actually implemented this. Krystal was tired of me going out on seller appointments and getting rejected and being like, you know what? They didn't want to accept my cash offer. She was tired because she handles the marketing. I handled the acquisitions. So what made you be like, you know what? You need to learn creative financing because we're missing out on too many deals.
Because at the end of the day, you all know, just like we know, you spend a lot of money drumming up these leads, correct? Right? We're all
Time,
putting
money.
a lot of time and money into getting these leads. right? And we all know that a lot of times these sellers are not going to be interested in pennies on the dollar. Even if their property is falling down, they still is like, listen, I'm not going to give my property away. So I told Dedric, I said, listen, we got to pivot. We got to do, we're losing out on too many properties. So I said, listen, going forward, you have to master seller finance. You have to master it. You have to become amazing at it. You have to sell it like you created this yourself, right? This is your strategy. So from that point on, I said every seller gets two options. Every seller gets two offers, no matter what happens. So he started going out on these appointments, calls, and it was not him asking, hey, okay, well, would you be open to, it was never that. It was, hey, okay, so here's what I can do for you. I can give you 80,000 cash right now, and then went through the whole spiel, or I can give you the 150 that you're asking, and this is how I'm going to structure it. From there, everyone was like, oh, well, I like the 150 better because they're getting what they're asking for. They were asking for 150. Dedric gave them their asking price, and they gave us our terms, right? So a lot of these properties we were getting in for next to nothing, no interest, but it's all about how you structure your terms.
So this is what an offer looks like. This is something that I emailed over to a seller. The top in the green is a cash offer for 225,000, as is, no inspections, the whole spiel you put on your offers as a cash buyer. And then the bottom one is a seller finance offer where I offered them 270, which is 45,000 more than the cash offer, with a 5,000 down payment and then those following terms. So that's presenting a seller with two options. Like Krystal said, we don't ask the seller, hey, are you open to seller financing? Because they're always, in most cases, going to say no, because they don't even know what seller financing means. So you present the two offers, you put it in front of them, and then you educate them on the difference between the two. One is all cash up front, and one is payments made over time. So again, let's back up a little bit. What is seller financing? So seller financing is literally the seller being the bank. So they are going to extend you a mortgage or a deed of trust, and you're going to make monthly payments to them. There's also a promissory note. Those two documents, a promissory note, mortgage, or deed of trust, and then you're going to get ownership of the house in exchange for making them a down payment and monthly mortgage payments, right? You're not paying rent, you're paying a mortgage. So you actually own the house. So once you buy a property and seller financing, if the toilet breaks, guess who's responsible? Not the seller who sold it to you on finance terms. You're the new owner. So you're responsible. And that's actually one of the benefits we tell sellers, that, hey, we take over that burden of property management for you. So payments, so what is seller financing? Literally, it's payments made over time. The seller is the bank. You make the payment directly to the seller versus a traditional bank, and it's secured by a promissory note and what's called a deed of trust. So what's a promissory note? A promissory note is simply a debt instrument that contains a written promise by one party to pay another party a definite sum of money, either on demand or at a future date, right? So that's what a promissory note is. And then a deed of trust is a legal agreement used in real estate that establishes a piece of property as collateral for a loan. So that's the security for the seller, so that if you ever stop making payments, they have this deed and they can take that deed in and say, hey, John didn't pay the mortgage for the past 6 months. I'm now going to foreclose. So one of the biggest objections to seller financing the sellers come up with is they say, hey, well, what if you stop making payments? What if you don't pay? What's my recourse? Your recourse is that they have a deed of trust that they can foreclose on and they can get the property back. So that protects the seller. You want to talk about some of the benefits of seller financing?
So some of the benefits for the buyer is little to no cash, right? That's being used. No credit is required, no credentials. No one has ever asked us, say, hey, I need to see your pay stubs. I need to see what you're bringing in. No bank qualifying. No tax returns, right? We are literally sitting down negotiating these seller finance deals with, hey, okay, this is what I can give you, 150,000 for the next 30 years. I'll give you, and if it's Dedric who's negotiating, he's like, look, I'll give you $1,000 down. I'm going to give you 500 a month. My first payment isn't going to start for the first 6 months because I need to get the property renovated. Why do we always do that? Because you don't want to start making payments on a property that you can't rent out. Right? Ask us how we know. So we always push back our payments. Now we'll say, hey, we'll give you 5,000 down, 3,000 down. Our first payment is not due for the next 8 months.
And everything's negotiable, right? Not every seller is going to agree to that, but then you go back and forth, you come to an agreement on what they could be happy with, right?
Don't mention interest unless they do, right? We're not going to say, hey, and we're going to give you 6% interest.
Yeah, we start out with just payments, just principal payments, right? So what are some of the rules when you're structuring a seller finance offer to a seller? Rule number one, everything is negotiable. Remember that everything is negotiable. I tell my wife this all the time. Don't think for the seller. So think about what can you afford as far as a down payment, how much can the property afford monthly based off of what rent you can collect. Because remember, even the monthly payments, if you say, hey, I'm going to pay you $1,000 a month, guess who's paying that monthly payment? Not you,
Right.
your renter. You're going to find a tenant to move in there and the tenant's going to pay you rent and then you're going to pay the landlord mortgage. So you're really not even paying the monthly payment. Your renter is paying it, right? So everything is negotiable. And rule number two, the terms that you agree on, the down payment, the monthly payment, the number of years, the interest, all that has to work not only for you, but also for the seller. So it's a give and take. It's a back and forth process to come into an agreement of what works for you guys. And a lot of times you just ask, hey, Mr. Seller, listen, if we were to structure something where I gave you some money down and made payments, how much would you want down? Right? What monthly payment would you be looking for? Asking a simple question, you can actually get some feedback as far as what they would be open to.
Even down to paying it off, right? We negotiate that. Hey, if we pay it off early, then instead of us giving you 150, we'll give you 140.
Because we were scheduled to pay it off in 8 years, but we're paying it off in 2 years instead. So you're getting an early payout. We want to get something back for cashing you out early. So I got a question for you guys. With these seller finance deals, are you able to wholesale or assign a seller finance deal?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Most people don't realize that as long as your contract says you can assign it, meaning you can nominate somebody else to close in your place, you can wholesale it, right? So we don't wholesale a lot of seller finance because we love keeping those in our
But
portfolio.
we buy a lot of them.
And we have wholesaled some of them, right? If it's in a neighborhood we don't particularly want to own long term. So you can wholesale seller finance deals. Most people don't really realize that.
And investors love it.
So here's some tips on how do you even structure a seller finance deal? What should your offer be? When somebody you're like, hey, I want to present them with seller finance, what should I offer them? What we typically do is we offer them their asking price. So they're asking 400,000, offer them 400,000. But you're going to give them their asking price, but you're going to make the terms favorable to you. The down payment. How much should you put down? How much can you afford? If they say, yes, Steve, I'll take your offer, you need to be prepared to put that down payment, whether it's 10,000, 20,000, 50, or maybe it's 1,000. You're like, look, all I can do right now is 1,000. That's your down payment. I'm going to buy it for 400,000, which is your asking. I'm going to give you 1,000 down. Now, again, are they going to accept it? It depends on their situation and what they're looking for. But your down payment should be what you could actually afford. If you're wholesaling it, what you think your cash buyer can afford. Our average guys down payment on seller finance deals we've closed is like 2 to 3%. 2 to 3%. Think about that. When most rental properties are 25% when you go through a traditional financing at a bank. They require 20 to 25%. We're paying 2 to 3%. So just think about that. So don't think that, oh, my down payment is too low, right? You may not just be talking to the right seller. So if, as a rule of thumb, if it's under 300,000, we typically do anywhere from 5 to 10,000 as far as a down payment. It depends. If it's over 300,000 sale price, we do like 15,000. Okay. The loan amount. How do you structure? How much should you owe? So you're basically going to take the asking price minus the down payment. That's how much you owe in a loan to them. So again, if it's 400,000, you and the seller agree on 5,000 as a down payment that you're going to pay them at closing. 400,000 minus 5,000 leaves you with 395. So your loan balance owed to them is 395. But guess what? The beautiful thing is you don't have to pay that all at once. You can pay that quarterly. You can make one payment a year. You can pay it monthly. It's all on what you and the seller can come to an agreement on. Interest rate. I didn't realize this until my mentor taught me. You can just make payments. You don't have to pay interest. Now, our sellers going to want interest, yes, but wanting and getting is two different things. The majority of our seller finance deals have 0% interest. You heard me right, 0. We just make payments. Now, some of them 3%, 5%. If the sellers are stick like, hey, I really need some interest, we'll throw in interest in there if the property can afford it. But your initial seller finance offer is just payments. Principal payments, but you can still make money if you pay interest. And then the monthly pay, how do you determine how much am I going to pay them each month for the mortgage? So how we determine that is we take what can we get in rent currently, not like pie in the sky, like, oh, I think I can get 2,000. No, what is the market rent as is in the current condition? Oh, it's 1,200. That's your current rent. Subtract out taxes. Let's say taxes are $200 a month. 1,200 minus 200 is 1,000. Say insurance is $100 a month. That's 900. You got to account for vacancy repair. Okay, well, I can give this guy $650 a month for a mortgage. That's how you kind of deduce what you're going to pay them in a monthly mortgage payment. And then the term is how long, how many months or how many years are you going to make payments? Again, typically we do between 5 and 10 years. We've done 30 years before, 40 years payments, right? The payments are a lot lower when you do. We've done 3 years. So it's all dependent on between what the seller wants, what you want, and you guys going back and forth and coming into a happy medium on what you both can be happy with, right? But it all starts with learning how to identify a deal. So it all starts with learning how to identify a deal, and that's where wholesaling comes in. So
thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.